I was listening to the Colin Cowherd Show, and I couldn't believe that Colin Cowherd and Chris Broussard both agreed that if LeBron won two more titles, he would go down as a greater player than Michael Jordan. That is laughable in so many ways. The most glaring reason why is that he'd still have one less title than Michael Jordan. But do we just forget that LeBron plays in the Eastern Conference and he has been in the Eastern Conference his entire career, and it has been terrible his entire career. Aside from when maybe the Celtics were there, when they had their big three, the Eastern Conference has been putrid. He's pretty much guaranteed a spot in the finals every year. I mean, what superstar would not want that? All you got to do is win one series every year. Imagine that. It's like, hey, Peyton Manning, you're going to go to the Super Bowl every year. You just got to win the Super Bowl. I mean, who the hell wouldn't sign up for that in any sport? And that's what LeBron has. I mean, that's amazing. Like, he's one of the luckiest players in sports. He's still, to me, probably a top 5 player. But let's be honest. He's had a little bit of luck in that situation. I mean, maybe not as, lucky as having a guy like Shaq in his prime to start off your career. But in general, LeBron has been very lucky. The other reason is, do we forget Michael Jordan played on the Bulls his entire career? Besides, his with the Wizards, but that didn't, we're not really going to count that. LeBron, in his prime, keeps leaving teams. Like, in his actual prime, he has to leave teams because he can't win a championship. And yeah, I understand that, his teams had some problems, like that Cavaliers team in the beginning, definitely he kind of lacked another star. I understand that the Heat were aging, but it doesn't matter. There's something to be said for having to constantly leave. I mean, how can you be considered the greatest if you have to constantly leave? Like, even when Shaq left, for example, the Magic, he did it voluntarily. It wasn't like, it had nothing to do with winning. They were still a really good team. It wasn't like he was like, I can't win a title, I'm going to go to LA. If anything, he probably made it harder on himself to win a title by going to LA. And then, he didn't want to be traded to Miami. So, I mean, it's just hard for me to envision, it's weird that you see an all-time great player like LeBron having to be actually voluntarily leaving different teams. I mean, it's bizarre. You don't see that. And we're trying to say that he'll be the greatest ever. I mean, it's insane. What about the fact that LeBron disappears? There are specific series, the entire series you can point to, 2011 finals against the Mavericks. He just disappeared. You're like, where's LeBron? Like, is he even trying? What about 2010 against the Celtics? I mean, that was embarrassing. Did anyone ever say, hey, where's Michael Jordan? Has anyone, no, I mean, that doesn't happen. Because he's Michael Jordan. Okay, there's plenty of other reasons. Let's see, what else we got here? Michael Jordan never even played in one Game 7 in the NBA Finals. Not even one Game 7 in the NBA Finals. LeBron has lost 4 finals. Jordan obviously lost none. 2 of LeBron's championships had to go to Game 7. And they went down to the wire. I mean, talk about, he's so great, but he's the greatest of all time, apparently. But he can barely win these championships. I mean, come on. Jordan only played in 2 Game 7s in his entire career in the 90s. Once against the Pacers in the conference finals. Once in the semifinals against the Knicks. And also, did you ever watch Michael Jordan play and think, oh, well, Scotty, maybe Scotty's a better player? And I mean, did it ever cross your mind? No, it never even crossed your mind. In 2011 finals, when Wade played so much better than LeBron, even throughout the year, sometimes you wondered, is Wade a better player? I mean, it wasn't clear. That never happened with Jordan. Jordan was always the clear best player in his team. What about even last year? How many times did you watch Kyrie play in the finals when he was hitting all these clutch shots and you're like, wait a sec. For a second, it crossed your mind. Obviously, then you thought, okay, clearly LeBron's a more important player. He does so many other things. But even for that second, though, how many times did you see just Kyrie tearing it up? And you're like, well, LeBron's, kind of missing a lot of shots this series, and Kyrie's hitting a lot of shots. And you're like, well, it did cross your mind. It crossed my mind, and then all of a sudden I woke up and I was like, well, the things LeBron does defensively, his rebounding, his passing, just so many other things that he's a better player. but the point is, it's the reason it's so close is it was still a closer argument than you ever had between Pippen and Jordan. It just was. We also forget Michael Jordan. He retired twice when he was the best player in the league. Very well should have won a title in '94 and '95 if he would have stayed. In '99, I think if he had stayed, he had a good shot of winning it. There really wasn't that many good teams in '99. I mean, the freaking Spurs win it with a young Tim Duncan in that lockout season. I don't know. I probably would have put my money on Michael Jordan. That'd be 7 titles. That would be 9 titles right there if you had those 3. Let's not forget that he did retire for those years, even though he came back in '95. He wasn't fully back yet. And another thing, this is the last point. When I watch LeBron James sometimes, and I watch his team, I get a little nervous watching him play because I generally root for him, and last year when he was down 3-1, which would never have happened to any Michael Jordan team, just would never have happened to Michael Jordan in his prime. It's just would never happen. You get really nervous because you're like, is LeBron going to show up today? Is he going to miss all his 3-pointers? Is he even going to shoot a 3? Is he going to be scared to shoot? Because sometimes you never know what LeBron is going to show up. And, when you watch Michael Jordan, you never thought to yourself, oh, is he going to win this championship? You're like, oh, if he's going to win it. You were just confident. You weren't nervous at all because you knew you were watching the greatest player to ever live. When you watch LeBron, you're not watching the greatest player ever to live. And that's why you're nervous. That's why you're not sure if he's going to win. And often he doesn't. When you watch Michael Jordan, you knew he was going to win because you were watching greatness.